Hi, my name is Damon Brown of DamonBrown.net. My thing is helping you as a side hustler, as a solopreneur, or otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. Today we're talking about Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine and how they are talking about the secret to their big idea. Now, Dr. Dre, of course, is a legend on the West Coast. He was actually sick recently, so I hope he's doing better. But he created NWA, of course, ended up starting this West Coast sound as far as gangster rap and hardcore hip hop, but also becoming more of a producer, like the equivalent of Quincy Jones. And Jimmy Iovine ended up starting or co-founding Interscope Records well after he'd already established himself as an amazing producer, working with John Lennon right before he died and so forth. They ended up collaborating, of course, when Dr. Dre was actually on Interscope Records. They became business partners, and they ended up coming up with this idea called Beats by Dre for these specialized headphones. These specialized headphones end up getting the attention of Apple. Apple bought their company for $3 billion with a B, and of course that shot both of them into the stratosphere. And they've been working together ever since as actually employees of Apple when it got acquired, and I think they moved on since then. The reason I explain all this stuff is that they are not headphone manufacturers. That was not the intention. And I'm going to break down a cool quote that Jimmy Iovine said. He said, "You can't start out thinking you have a $1 billion idea. That's the secret." He says, you can't start out thinking you have a $1 billion idea. That's the secret. Whew, that is powerful for me. I love it. Let's break down a couple different things in it. Their thing is saying, you don't know if it's going to work. Number one, you don't know if it's going to work. You start it anyway. If you say, I'm going to have a best-selling book, let me start writing it, then your main metric is that kind of success. Your main metric is saying, okay, every single word, letter, whatever, paragraph I put down, it better appeal to enough people so that it can sell 10,000 copies in the first week and I can be on the Wall Street Journal bestsellers list or the New York Times bestseller list. That's a dangerous place to be because you're going to start censoring yourself. Let me give you some background. The Beats by Dre idea, which initially was Beats headphones, happened when they happened to be brainstorming. And I believe it was Dr. Dre was jogging past Jimmy Iovine's house over in Malibu, I think. It was somewhere on the West Coast, posh place. And he called him over. He was like, hey, what's going on? He's like, I'm just jogging, blah, blah, blah. And he said, you know what? I have this idea where I want to do some manufacturing, like I want to co-sign something. So I think he said sneakers. He's like, Dr. Dre was like, I want to do some sneakers. And Jimmy was like, well, you can do sneakers if you want. Sure, you can make a few mil on that because he's got a popular name, right? People know who Dr. Dre is. And he said, but why don't you do something that you actually know about, that you're an expert about? Why don't you do headphones? You always say headphones suck. Why don't we go ahead and partner with a manufacturer and do some cool headphones? And we'll market it like this, etc. That's how it happened. You don't know. You don't know. So opening yourself to those ideas and not saying, this idea isn't going to be big, it sucks, and then pushing it away. What I'm most known for as an entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur twice. My second startup was called Cuddler. It connected people for hugs. So if you think of Tinder or Grindr, which were popular at the time back in 2014, this is a platonic version of that. My two co-founders came up with the idea. They brought me aboard a little bit later to handle the steering of it, the culture, the marketing, getting out to the media and so forth. I became the third co-founder. It sounded like a really unusual idea. People I talked to about it were like, that sounds weird but intriguing. We didn't know if it was going to work. But we put a few months into it. We bootstrapped it ourselves. The first week, we were on the cover of all the major newspapers. We actually were on the late night talk shows. It was an insane ride, and we had 100,000 users in the first week for our app. We're the number one app in several countries, including here in America and in Canada. We didn't know that in the beginning, though. Just like Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine didn't know that they had a $3 billion idea. All they knew was that they had an idea, and luckily, just like myself and my co-founders, luckily they had the resources to pursue it. I talk about that in my new book, Build From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World, about the 4 resources we all have, but they happen to be certain strengths, and so there's usually one resource we have more than others. If you take my quiz at buildfromnowquiz.com, you can learn your resource, or you can grab the book, which is available everywhere now. I just had my launch party. Thanks, y'all, for coming out. And the quiz is in there as well. But if you know what your resources are, and you have a cool idea and it fits, then go for it. You don't know. So we spend so much time being critical before we actually do our minimal viable product, as we say in Silicon Valley, that we don't even know what's going to work. Some of my best sellers, I've had 3, maybe 4 at this point, I didn't know they were going to be bestsellers. I just wrote them because I knew that was the idea that was inspiring me, and that's how I wanted to serve the world based on the feedback I was getting from other people. That's it. End up being on some major lists, cool. You know, and that's how you can harness that creativity. And I would listen to these folks because they're not spring chickens, and so they've been in the cycle. I think Dr. Dre's been in the game since he was like 17, 16, and Jimmy Iovine actually I think is older than Dr. Dre. And so again, John Lennon, Interscope Records, which ruled the 90s, Beats by Dre, etc. And then the same thing for Dr. Dre. They are used to the cycle of creation, so I would listen to them. So number one, you don't know if idea is going to work. Do it anyway. Particularly, again, if you build from now, hence the title of the book, if you build from now and you use the resources you currently got instead of stretching yourself too thin. Number two, it's about continually finding more ways to serve, and that has to be the way. So number one, you don't know if the idea is going to work. Try it anyway if you got the resources. Number two, continuing to serve is paramount in it. And Iovine says this about that. He says, people would tell us no one is going to pay for headphones when they get them for free. That's not the way culture moves. That's not the way things move. People were saying people aren't going to buy, and I don't know what they cost now that they're part of Apple, because frankly, I'm not spending that much on headphones. You just see my headphones over here. I think they're like $20. I'm not their audience either. But when they first came out, those Beats by Dre headphones or whatever they were called, because they changed the names a couple times, they were like $300. And that was like to start. $279 comes to mind. Who's going to pay $279 for that? Well, if your headphones are by, one of the best producers ever to live in my era, maybe you'll pay $300 for it. But we don't know that. We don't know what the culture is actually, as they say, I think it was Adam Smith who talked about that way back in the day with the economy. We don't know what the market will bear. The reverse of that too, which is also the inverse of that, which is also important, we don't know what the culture needs. So we put what we need out there, or what we think they need out there, and then we see if it goes. If you would have convinced somebody before Beats by Dre that people would pay $300 for a set of headphones, aside from the folks that are in first class back when I used to be executive platinum with the different airlines, aside from people that were sitting next to me, I wasn't one of them. I had my own way of getting into first class. But the people that were next to me, sure, they paid $300 for a headphone. But to have it at a mass scale, where average people of average income were getting these headphones, you couldn't predict that. And so the best thing to do is build from now and create it. But the best things, or to increase your chances of having a success, you have to actually focus on serving your audience. Shoes were not going to serve Dr. Dre's audience. Headphones would. He's a producer. It sounds brilliant. He's in his lane. He spent 5 decades in the music business by now. I think he's in his 60s. So 4 or 5 decades in the music business. He knows the deal. It's like me talking to you. This might be a new medium. You might not be used to me by this. You might have bought one of my best-selling books or whatever. You might be reading my ink column at inkdamonbrown.com. You might have seen my keynotes. This is different for different times. But my main thing is non-traditional entrepreneurs. Is this not my wheelhouse? So my main thing is focused still on serving you, even though I'm doing it in a different way. That's all that Dre and Iovine, who was also a lifelong producer, 2 superpower producers, one in the rock field and one in the hip-hop field. They changed their respective industries. It made perfect sense for them to collaborate on headphones. Of course, they had major success with it. So, number one, you don't know what's going to work, so try it, right? They turn into a $3 billion company for them. Number two, serving the customer is paramount. If you focus on that, your chances of success are a lot higher. If you want more insight and other ways that you can find success, come on over to buildfromnowquiz.com. It's buildfromnowquiz.com. It's actually a free quiz based on my new book that I think I already mentioned, Build From Now, How to Know Your Power, See Your Abundance, and Nourish the World. And it talks about the resources that we all have and how to maximize that particular resource that is most innate and common to you at this moment. It's a free quiz. It's 3 to 4 questions. Hundreds of y'all have taken it, which is amazing. I love being able to, again, serve and help you on this level and help you build from now. Until next time, remember to always bring your worth and that you always build from now. Take care.